All the nobles gathered in a lavish hall celebrating each other's company with good food and wine. As everyone socialized, a lone woman isolated herself near the buffet table. As she took a bite of her food, she coldly commanded the staff to call the chef at once. When she didn't get her way instantly, she yelled at them to bring her the chef immediately. Villain origin story starts with seasoning. One of the guests remarked that the young Lady Osland was at it again, and another guessed that it was her usual tantrum. In this kingdom, Lady Alicia Osland was known as the Lady of Frost, and many rumors surrounded her name. One of the guests heard that she had dismissed countless servants from their jobs. The thought scared them because it seemed like she had the cold heart of a demon king. Finally, the chef faced Alicia confessing that he was responsible for the day's menu. Alicia understood. Then she asked what exactly he was thinking, serving her food at that level. She hoped the man was prepared for what was to come. The chef shrieked in fear, then slammed his head on the floor, kneeling for her mercy. One of the noble women couldn't believe the scene before her. She thought Alicia was awful because there wasn't even anything wrong with the meals. They were absolutely delicious. Another added to the gossip, commenting that Alicia probably just wanted someone to persecute. As Alicia loomed over the chef, someone suddenly entered the hall. It was her attendant named Gray, and he wanted to have a bit of the crowd's attention. On behalf of his presumptuous, awkward, and inarticulate mistress, he would like to explain to them all the proper meaning of her words. Alicia wanted to stop him, but he told her to be quiet. Gray claimed that Alicia wasn't criticizing the quality of the food whatsoever. Just then, one of the nobles angrily asked what a mere attendant like him was even babbling about. In their eyes, Alicia was clearly complaining to the chef. Gray argued that she wasn't, and he insisted that she wanted to say something different. What she said must be translated as follows: "Thank you for allowing me to enjoy such delicious meals." Real-time damage control legend. As Gray tried to save her reputation, Alicia couldn't help but sulk and feel embarrassed. As expected, everyone was stunned by Gray's claims, and their mouths were left hanging open. He pressed on, claiming that what Alicia meant by "I hope you're prepared for what's to come" was "I would like to put you at my service. Is that okay with you?" He explained that Alicia only wanted to offer her compliments to the chef. One of the noblemen stuttered as he asked if this was a joke. He angrily told Gray that he couldn't expect them to believe such a foolish excuse. He couldn't just cover her with this nonsense. Just then, Gray casually explained that the proof was right behind him. He gestured to the table, telling everyone to take a look at it. For this party, each table was prepared with enough food for 5 people. A nobleman noted that every single one of those plates was empty, leading him to ask what Gray's point was. To the nobleman's surprise, Gray explained that Lady Alicia didn't have any friends, so she had all those meals to herself. The nobleman couldn't believe it, but the truth was evident. Lady Alicia had finished 5 people's worth of food all by herself. Respectfully, she demolished that. This was the indisputable proof that Lady Alicia did enjoy the food. The nobleman stuttered, admitting that it all made sense. Just then, the chef asked if this meant that she wasn't displeased by his skills. Gray met his gaze, telling him that he may be overstepping his bounds, but he wanted the chef to put his skills at the service of the Osland family. Suddenly, Alicia appeared behind Gray, muttering his name with a menacing tone. Gray felt tense, and before he knew it, Alicia was already dragging him along with her. As he accepted his fate, he told the chef that they would inform him in more detail about the working conditions later. The chef called out Lady Alicia's name, causing her to ask if there was anything more that he wished to say to her. The chef bowed his head, telling her that he was honored that his cuisine had satisfied her palate. Alicia remarked that this was nothing worth expressing gratitude for. Wanting to save her again, Gray clarified that she meant "Your meals were wonderful, so it's only natural that I praise you." Alicia was furious, and she ended up slapping Gray's back. She then sped up her walking, telling Gray that they were leaving. When they were finally alone, Alicia mentioned that Gray had a lot of nerve to embarrass her, as he had earlier. However, Gray played coy and asked what she meant. Suddenly, Alicia fell silent for a moment. Then she thanked Gray. However, she claimed she would never forgive him if he ever left her side. This was the story of the cold-hearted noble lady and the attendant who supported her. Gray had no mother, and he lived with his alcoholic father and his older sister. This went from rom-com to depression. When he was a child, he would cry every day because of their poverty, struggling to even get enough to eat each day. His big sister spoke in a funny, noble-like voice, teasing him for bawling his eyes out. She laughed, calling him her hopeless little brother. Gray asked why she was talking funny like that, and she naively answered that one day a noble was going to fall head over heels for her and she would marry rich. That was why she was practicing that fancy pants way of talking now. When that happened, it would be bye-bye to the crappy dump and hello to happiness. Gray was intrigued when she mentioned happiness, and he asked if he could have that too. His sister remarked that in his case with that big mug of his, maybe he could become a knight or charm some noble lady into hiring him as her servant. But for that he had to work hard every single day. Being strong was important, sure, but understanding a maiden's heart was just as vital, naturally. Gray was confused, wondering what a maiden's heart meant. Just then his sister gave him a little nugget of wisdom. Never lie to a lady, he should just be honest and pour his heart out. She also reminded him to always slap on a nice fresh smile. If he made sure to follow her advice, no fancy lady would be able to resist him. Gray was overjoyed, and he thanked his sister for her advice, and even told her he loved her. His sister scoffed, claiming that she didn't care about getting praise from her crybaby brother. It didn't make her happy or anything. Just then she told Gray not to worry, because she would whip him into shape and turn him into a great little brother. However, as Gray turned into a young man, he realized that everything his sister had said was just nonsensical. One day he came home to his father drinking a bottle of booze. His sister had left their house a few years ago, whereas he was still living his crappy life with their father. Gray asked his father where he got the booze, but the man only smirked, asking if he was referring to the bottle in his hand. He claimed that Gray could be a dirty rascal when he wanted to, and he couldn't believe that he was stashing away that much money under the floor. Gray angrily said that it was the money he was saving up for the Knight Academy. His father simply said sorry, as he had already used it all to pay off his debts. He told Gray to just let it go and think of it as filial piety for his old man. Just then he laughed, amused by the fact that Gray wanted to be a knight. It was a pipe dream if he had ever heard one. Then he told Gray to consider it another life lesson. Now he wanted Gray to get back to saving up for him. Before the man could even make sense of anything, his face met Gray's fist. His face was swollen from the punch, but Gray was barely fazed by what he had done. Gray's fist said what therapy couldn't. He simply left and wandered off to town. As he walked aimlessly, his stomach growled due to hunger. He regretted storming out like that, because he hadn't thought about taking anything with him. He wondered if he could find a live-in job with meals included. But he knew he couldn't expect that kind of luxury. Just then he saw a small crowd gathering near a bulletin board. To Gray's surprise, there was a job posting for cleaning staff at the Duke's villa. A high salary was guaranteed with live-in accommodations and meals included. Gray's eyes widened, unable to believe the opportunity before him. And so he immediately went to the Osland family's villa office. After revealing his current circumstances, Gray hoped to be hired. The chief butler, Maya Lorix, nodded after understanding his situation. However, she noted that he was a peculiar man himself. He didn't have to go out of his way to tell her that. With a serious look, Maya asked him if he really thought that coming from a poor background would affect his chances of being hired. It was either that, or he was trying to gain her sympathy. Gray panicked and clarified that it wasn't his intention. He was also not good at hiding things. Maya was silent for a while, then she gave him a hypothetical question. If he were to be hired and become her subordinate, would that be okay with him? Gray thought that would naturally be the case, so he said yes. However, he wondered why she asked this. Just then Maya peered her face closely at Gray, highlighting her womanly features. She reminded him that she was a woman and asked if he had any particular opinions about working under her direction. Gray was puzzled, asking if there was any issue with that. His answer left Maya stunned. Gray continued talking, explaining that with her pretty looks he might get a little too motivated to work. However, he quickly took that back and clarified that it came out wrong. Maya blushed, but then she quickly wiped the look off her face. She told Gray that as long as he worked hard, his origins wouldn't be an issue. On top of that, they had recently had a labor shortage caused by a lot of turnover among the employees. Gray was surprised, realizing that this meant he was close to being hired. Maya then explained that the mansion was a villa prepared by Lord Dillon, the head of the Duchy of Osland, for his daughter, Lady Alicia. However, before she could hire him, she wanted to warn him about one thing. Lady Alicia was an extremely difficult woman, so Gray had to be careful not to upset her. Gray grew nervous, wondering just what difficult truly meant. Shortly after their talk, Gray left Maya's office. She recalled how Gray had no problem with her authority, which left her curious about him. Nevertheless, she hoped he could survive at least 1 month without getting fired. Meanwhile, Gray immediately put on his uniform. He was amazed as he put it on, as this was his first time wearing clean clothes since he was born. All the clothes he had ever worn were covered in mud after all. He put it on, and the bacteria filed a missing person report. Just then a man approached him, commenting on how he could hardly believe that he was a newbie. Gray asked the man who he was, and he introduced himself as Mori, the person in charge of showing him the ropes. Mori said it was nice to meet him, so Gray went ahead and introduced himself as well. He shook Mori's hand, telling him he was looking forward to working with him. For his task, Mori taught him how to wipe the windows. The trick was to wipe them in as even a pattern as possible and to pay close attention to all 4 corners. Gray did as he was told, which impressed Mori. He couldn't help but admit that Gray was pretty good at it. Gray humbly explained that it was because he had experience working as a cleaner. Mori playfully smirked, thinking that he could learn a thing or 2 from Gray. Meanwhile, Gray felt proud, wondering who would have thought all his days of hard labor would pay off like that. Just then Gray told Mori that he didn't think there was anything he could teach people working at a duke's house. However, Mori was sure that there was. After all, he had only been working there for 3 weeks. Just then they overheard a conversation between 2 maids at the end of the hall. One was talking about her boyfriend, laughing about something he did. Her friend joined in on the gossip, commenting on how the other maid's boyfriend sucked. Gray was surprised by how carefree they were. So Mori pointed out how shocking this behavior was. That was what the majority of the staff in the mansion was like. They made a lot of small talk, and Mori wished they would get to work at least. Hearing that, Gray asked how the mansion was so well maintained when the staff was that lazy. Mori told him to keep it between them, then whispered the truth to Gray. Just then a woman's angry voice cut through the chatter, asking the maids what they were doing. The woman's furious tone shocked one of the maids, causing her to knock over a nearby vase. As the shards of glass scattered across the floor, Alicia angrily asked the maid if she was okay because the crash was quite loud. However, the maids couldn't care less about themselves and instead worried about the broken vase. Gray wondered what in the world was happening. Just then he looked to his side and was stunned by what he saw. It was Alicia, and her gorgeous appearance left him dazed. One of the maids immediately apologized and reassured Alicia that they would clean it up right away. However, Alicia coldly said it wouldn't be necessary, which made the maids shriek in horror. She told them to forget about cleaning up and instead leave right away. The maids worriedly said that it wasn't fair, but this only made Alicia furious. She dared the maid to answer if they had any problems with her. Terrified, the maids said no and immediately ran for their lives. Just then Alicia turned around, commanding Mori and Gray to clean up the mess. Gray immediately complied while Alicia angrily huffed as she walked away. When she was finally gone, Mori remarked that the young lady was as strict as ever. Gray seemed confused, so Mori elaborated that those girls were also at fault for slacking off, but Alicia didn't have to tell them off so harshly. Gray understood his point, but he hoped that Lady Alicia had a kind heart. Mori was horrified, realizing that being bossed around by a tyrant was the kind of thing Gray was into. Mori just learned Gray's love language is verbal whiplash. Gray was caught off guard and anxiously explained that it wasn't what he meant. He recalled that Lady Alicia didn't berate the maids for breaking the vase even once. Mori agreed it was a good point, but that vase alone would normally cost a maid's lifetime salary. Just then Gray mentioned that Lady Alicia noticed the maid had hurt her foot, so maybe what she meant to say was, "Go back to your room and treat your wound quickly." Mori wondered if the young lady would be that considerate, as it was hard to believe right away. Still, he thought Gray was one unusual guy. Most people who saw her attitude would normally get a bad impression of her. Gray guessed Mori was right. Then he mentioned that Alicia reminded him of his sister, who behaved much like her. Mori asked what kind of sister she was, but Gray didn't answer and focused on cleaning instead. He then asked Mori where he could find the dustpan. Meanwhile, Alicia headed to the maid's quarters where she prepared herself for what was to come. Just then she overheard one of the maids complaining about how Alicia was the worst. They called her a stuck-up brat and wondered what her problem was. They argued that the vase would have never shattered if she hadn't shouted like that. They also wondered what she meant by "leave right now." They couldn't fathom why she was acting all high and mighty when everybody hated her. Outside, Gray happened to walk past Alicia, who was visibly stunned by everything she had just heard. Imagine overhearing your Yelp reviews in real time. He called out to her in concern. but she left in a hurry, accidentally leaving behind a small container. Surprised, he picked it up instead. To his surprise, it contained ointment, and it somehow made him smile. Later that day, Gray and Mori tended to the mansion's garden. There, Gray asked why Lady Alicia took all her lessons at the mansion. Mori explained that she had been indefinitely suspended from the academy due to causing trouble there. Gray already couldn't believe it, but Mori shared more. Mori spilling tea like it's fertilizing the garden. Apparently, she had also been banned from all social meetings in the royal capital because she drove all the other noble ladies her age to tears when she was just a kid. It seemed her father, who lived at the main residence, wanted to find her a marriage partner quickly. But it also seemed that dozens of her fiancé candidates had run away because of her behavior. Gray was in shock, but he kept listening. Mori pressed on, explaining that those men who ran from her each found new fiancés right after. Because of this, there was a rumor that those who freed themselves from her would be blessed with luck. Gray thought it was downright sad, especially since they all found another fiancé right after. Mori was amazed by his reaction, as he had been siding with her the whole time. Mori swung his arm over Gray's shoulders, playfully guessing that it was because of Lady Alicia's looks. He couldn't blame Gray for having a crush on her. He chuckled at the thought of a forbidden romance between a common-born servant and a duke's daughter and told Gray to forget it. Gray muttered Mori's name, causing Mori to ask if he had touched a nerve. Gray explained that it wasn't, but he told Mori to look behind him. To his shock, Alicia was standing there, mockingly remarking that he was in high spirits. Without warning, Mori ran off in fear, lying about some job Maya wanted him to do. Meanwhile, Alicia huffed in irritation as she watched him go. Alicia's presence alone caused a cardio emergency. Gray then greeted her with a good morning and mentioned that it was another fine day. Just then, Alicia asked if he was the new hire and if his name was Gray. He confirmed she was right and told her it was an honor that she remembered him. Alicia mentioned that lowborn or not, she was still able to remember the names and faces of her servants, more or less. Gray was in awe and thought it was only natural that a sensible lady like her would remember such things. Unbeknownst to Gray, he was fanboying so hard that he didn't notice how close he was to her. Alicia looked away to hide how flustered she was. Then she asked Gray why he was smiling like that. Gray immediately apologized, asking if it displeased her. Alicia clarified that it wasn't that. She just wanted to know the reason. Gray answered that he simply couldn't help but smile, knowing he had the chance to talk to a lady as beautiful as her. Just as Gray was about to continue, the flustered Alicia wondered if there was anything she had said in particular. Gray, on the other hand, pressed on, bringing up the fact that she referred to them as lowborn commoners. However, if she truly meant those words, she would never bother remembering their names and faces or talking to them. Alicia felt shy, but Gray complimented her for being beautiful, both inside and out. Being able to serve her was a true blessing to him. Alicia was stunned and blushed at everything he had just said. She gritted her teeth and remarked that Gray had quite an optimistic way of thinking. This made him chuckle, surprised that she thought so. Suddenly, Alicia softly revealed that he was the first person to ever say something like that to her. Gray didn't hear it and asked if she had said something. She angrily answered that she hadn't and commanded him to stop slacking off and get back to work. Shocked by her yelling, Gray bowed to her whim. She angrily turned away, but then told him that the mansion had gotten a little cleaner since he arrived. She told him to keep doing his best for his own sake, and he happily said he would. Later that night, Alicia changed into her bedtime clothes and dove right into her bed. As she relaxed, she muttered Gray's name. She grabbed one of her plushies, pretending it was talking to her. It noticed how cheerful she was and asked if something good had happened. She playfully teased the plushie, whose name was Jibby Jibby, asking if he wanted to know, and it seemed to pry her for answers. Emotional support plushie unlocked. The fact that she was still playing with a plushie at 17 was embarrassing, but she played along, revealing that the new servant they had hired had smiled at her. Jibby Jibby asked if that was it, so Alicia snapped back and wondered if there was anything wrong with that. She pouted and blushed, causing Jibby Jibby to ask if she was interested in that boy. Flustered, Alicia smashed Jibby Jibby into her ample chest, telling him to shut it. Still, she couldn't help but wonder if they would meet again tomorrow. Meanwhile, Gray finally finished his tasks. Another great day came to an end, and he hoped he could see Lady Alicia tomorrow too. The boy still had no idea that dedicating his support to the Lady of Frost would make her absolutely obsessed with him. After Gray's father stole the money he was saving up to enroll in the Night Academy, he punched him out of anger and left their rotten house. Though he was penniless and desperate, he found a job listing for a servant position at the Duke's residence. He was rushed to the interview and was successfully hired by the chief butler Maya. It was then that he encountered Lady Alicia Osland, aka the Lady of Frost. However, to Gray's surprise, he was now tasked to accompany her to a ball. Maya explained that this ball would be held that night at a certain marquee residence, and she was instructed to have their young mistress participate. Gray was surprised because Alicia was invited to participate. Maya elaborated that the point was to rehabilitate her, even a little, so that she may be allowed back into social gatherings. But to make sure that she wouldn't cause any trouble, she would like him to come along and watch her. Gray asked why he was chosen when there were other people who had been there longer, like Mori for instance. However, Maya revealed that Alicia had handpicked him out of all her worthless servants. She absolutely wouldn't take part unless it was him, and so she strongly recommended that Maya send him. Gray's eyes sparkled when he found out that Alicia said that. But when Maya frowned at him, he instinctively swallowed nervously. Maya sighed. Then she reminded Gray to refrain from doing anything that would tarnish the family name. Later that night, Gray and Alicia finally arrived at the venue where the ball was to take place. As Alicia exited the carriage, Gray bowed and asked if he could offer her his hand. Alicia took his hand and thanked him, noting that he was very diligent that day. Soon after they entered the residence, which was full of nobility. Gray was a bit nervous, as he finally got to see where the aristocrats danced. Meanwhile, Alicia was irritated because the place was quite rowdy. Just then she looked back at Gray, reminding him not to conduct himself in a manner that would disgrace her as her servant. Gray was determined to obey her, and he promised that he wouldn't fail her. Alicia looked away and smiled, then strictly told him to follow her. As Gray walked after her, some of the noblemen couldn't believe that the Lady of Frost from House Osland was present at the ball. Despite their shock, they couldn't deny that she had become more beautiful since the last time they saw her. When they caught sight of her lethal looks, they couldn't help but be in awe. She had a beauty that captivated people's attention, even amidst such a dazzling ballroom. She had a presence that drew special interest for more than just the rumors about the Lady of Frost. Gray overheard the gossip and finally realized who exactly Alicia Osland was. Just then a woman approached Alicia, mocking her presence at the ball. When Alicia faced the woman, she found that it was Limris Carnera, the daughter of a viscount. With her was Farah Astral, the daughter of a marquis. Limris asked when the last time they met face-to-face was, then mentioned that it was when Alicia was suspended from the academy. Farah, on the other hand, hesitatingly told Alicia that it had been a long time. Alicia raised an eyebrow, mentioning Farah and Limris's names. Just then Limris wondered what turn of events could have led to a pariah like her showing up at the ball. However, to her surprise, Alicia walked right past her, much to her annoyance. Alicia approached Farah, who was shaking from the encounter. She told Farah that she was still the same as always, but this only confused the girl. Alicia went on to say that she had a terrible outfit. She looked like a complete country bumpkin with no fashion sense. If she was going to attend with that kind of makeup and dress, she would have been better off staying at home instead. Alicia didn't just critique her outfit. She assassinated her. Farah was stunned as she hadn't expected such comments. Alicia suggested introducing her to her favorite dress shop. Maybe then she would manage to look more presentable. As expected, Alicia's words made Farah melt to the floor, sobbing her eyes out. The guests were starting to tune into the drama, so Limris made sure to be loud about it. She asked Alicia how she dared to say something so heartless and questioned if she even knew anything about Farah. She would have Alicia know that Farah's style of dress suited her perfectly. However, this didn't faze Alicia, and she only stared at them with her head held high. One of the noblemen called her a shameless woman for embarrassing another in such a public place. Another noted that she mocked someone so mercilessly without batting an eye. Only the Lady of Frost could do that. Hearing all these comments, Limris secretly flashed a smile. She then told Farah that it was now time to go. No matter what anyone said, she would always be on her side. She was convinced she was right, because she was the one who understood her best. Meanwhile, amongst the crowd, Gray watched closely. Just then Farah muttered under her breath, saying that she hated Alicia. She cried loudly, mentioning how Alicia always made fun of her every time they met. She erupted screaming how much she hated Alicia and how she never wanted to speak to her again. Alicia simply turned her back on Farah, telling her to do as she wished. Farah kept her head low, vowing that she would take her up on that. Wanting to save Alicia's image, Gray finally decided to take action. He told everyone to give him a moment. Everyone was surprised except for Limrus, who was unamused. Limrus frowned, asking what right a servant like him had to interfere. Gray pleaded to excuse his impertinence, but everybody there seemed to have misunderstood what Lady Alicia said. Farah was puzzled, and so were the rest of the guests. Gray explained that Lady Alicia was an extremely kind-hearted person, but she struggled to express her true feelings. Alicia was surprised by what he was saying and thought he was nothing but an idiot. Still, Gray went on clarifying that Alicia actually wanted to tell Farah that she would look so much more beautiful in a more elegant dress. If that was okay with her, then she would like to go shopping together. Everyone gasped, not expecting this revelation from Gray. And so Gray told everyone this was how her words were meant to be interpreted. Gray went from zero to emotional diplomat in record time. Limrus was irritated while Farah seemed shocked. Limrus told him not to be ridiculous and insisted that Alicia had actually insulted her earlier. Suddenly, Gray wondered if he could ask Farah some questions. He guessed that her dress and makeup were not her own choosing, but were selected by Lady Limrus. Farah was surprised by his guess, but she confirmed he was right. Just then, Gray warned that what he was about to say was merely a conjecture, but he believed people often made hurtful remarks about her appearance. Not just Lady Alicia, but others as well. And every time they did, Lady Limrus was the one who comforted her. Farah was shocked, wondering how Gray even knew. Suddenly, Limrus interjected, telling Gray not to dare mess with her. She wouldn't just stand by and listen while he made her out to be the villain. She accused Alicia of being the one at fault to begin with. She asked Gray if he had any idea how many people Alicia had hurt until now. This wasn't just a matter of not being honest with herself. Alicia was a pariah, and people had to be crazy to side with someone like her. The guests agreed that Limrus was right, as it was really hard to believe. They bet that this was just another scheme of hers. Meanwhile, Farah remained silent, unable to comment on anything. Farah silently calculating life choices that led her here. Then, to everyone's surprise, Gray claimed that Alicia had someone on her side. Him. From now on, he would be the one to convey Lady Alicia's true feelings to everyone. Then he would prove once and for all that she wasn't a Lady of Frost. The room fell silent, and no one dared to say a word. Suddenly, Alicia told Gray that it was enough and commanded him to stand back. Gray wanted to argue, but Alicia reminded him not to forget his position. She asked if he couldn't see that any further disorder would bring shame upon House Osland. Gray was stunned while Limrus wondered what Alicia was even saying. Just then, Alicia bowed, telling everyone that they would now excuse themselves. She asked them to pretend that they were never there and to enjoy the ball at their leisure. She left right away, causing Gray to run after her. Meanwhile, Limrus huffed in irritation. Later, outside, Gray called out to Alicia, bowing his head to the ground in apology. Alicia reminded him not to bring shame upon her, but he was too insolent for a mere house cleaner. That was the most incredibly horrible experience of her life, which was why from now on she would personally drill proper servant etiquette into him. Gray was confused, so he asked if she didn't hear him. As of now, he was to stay by her side and serve her at all times. Gray wondered if this meant she was appointing him as her personal servant, which made Alicia blush. Suddenly, she told him to shut up and asked if he had a problem with that. This made Gray panic, and he frantically said he had no problems whatsoever. Suddenly, Alicia held out her hand to him, puzzling him. She complained that she couldn't dance with anyone that day because of him, so until her carriage arrived to take them home, he would be her dance partner. Gray couldn't believe it, but Alicia refused to repeat what she had just said. Then, without warning, she pulled him up and started dancing with him. She laughed and asked what kind of dance that was, telling him to try a little harder. Gray tensed up, but he did his best to dance with Alicia. Later that night, Alicia grinned as she recalled what had happened earlier. She remarked that Gray was such a cheeky servant. She pretended that Jeb was talking to her, telling her that she was in a good mood despite going to that ball she hated so much. Alicia asked if he wanted to know why, then decided to tell him anyway. She giggled and revealed that Gray came to her aid just when she was on the verge of tears. She was about to continue, but Jeb interjected, commenting that it was amazing. He was like the Prince Charming she had always been waiting for. Jeb chiming in like a hype man for chaos. Alicia asked what Jeb was saying. Gray was just a commoner, and calling him a prince was silly. Calling him her soulmate might be more appropriate. Overwhelmed by the giddy feeling, Alicia hugged Jeb tightly and started rolling back and forth on her bed. She screamed, wondering if she was getting ahead of herself. She muttered Gray's name, mentioning how naughty a servant he was for stirring his mistress's heart like that. She would just have to give him a proper education starting tomorrow. As she chuckled in excitement, Gray felt a random chill run through his body. Unbeknownst to him, he would have to do his best to stay strong. Gray complained, saying that he screwed up. He just had to run his mouth at the ball, and he realized the gravity of his actions after one night. There had to be a smarter way to handle that situation, and he didn't have to make such a bold declaration in front of so many people. He just couldn't stand hearing them badmouth Lady Alicia. But now he might have only made her reputation even worse. Realizing that Gray knew that he needed to reflect on the situation, he tried to save her rep and accidentally pressed self-destruct. Just then he realized that Alicia was actually such a thoughtful lady. Before coming to the estate, his life was so utterly miserable. Once he was told by his father that he didn't care if he stole or begged. He just wanted him to earn some money. He even called Gray a freeloader. One noble woman was disgusted at the sight of him, and she told him not to stand in front of her house. He was called a filthy brat, and she drove him away. Even when he was trying his best, he was called a dirty little runt by his employer. He was forced to hurry up and carry his load, and was even called a good-for-nothing. Back then it took everything to survive each day, and the only reason he was in his comfortable life now was because of Lady Alicia, which was why he wanted to do everything he could for her. Just then Alicia approached him, relieved that she had finally found him. Gray was surprised, but before he could even greet her, she suddenly grabbed his hand, telling him to go with her. Gray asked where they were headed, and what for, but Alicia didn't answer. They arrived at Maya's office, where Alicia informed her that she wished to make Gray her personal servant. Maya asked what sort of ridiculous command this was, and Alicia replied that she simply meant to personally train that impertinent house cleaner into a proper servant. The girls had an intense stare-off, and Gray was stuck in the middle. Maya already knew what had happened at the ball the previous night, and she read the overly detailed report that their foolishly honest house cleaner had written up. Maya suddenly faced Gray, growling at him with anger. Just then Alicia pinched Gray's cheek, asking Maya if she understood just how much of a fool he was. As his master, she couldn't just leave such a hopeless servant unattended. Gray, who was forced to stay still, awkwardly told Alicia that her pinching hurt. Maya suggested dismissing the boy if he was so incompetent, which alarmed Gray. Alicia argued that even if a servant was lacking, ignoring them on the spot was a decision unbecoming of a noble. They ought to have a little patience. Both Gray and Maya were stunned by her comment, as it seemed rich coming from her. Alicia asked if they had anything to say, but they inevitably said they had nothing. Just then Maya admitted that she acknowledged Gray's qualities as well. He was diligent, and his actions last night were simply a display of his excessive loyalty. She actually thought appointing him as Alicia's translator to clear up her often misunderstood words and deeds wouldn't be a bad idea. Gray was caught off guard, and he could only mutter Maya's name in shock. However, Maya was against the fact that Alicia wanted to share not just meals, but even a bedroom with Gray. She was furious, asking the young lady if she was out of her mind. Alicia explained that a noble couldn't afford to be shackled by common sense. Progress required breaking free from it. Maya argued that this wasn't about nobility, it was just improper for a young lady of her age. It may just be the excitement of having made her first real friend, but her sense of personal space was utterly absurd. Alicia frowned at the thought of being friends with a commoner. She claimed that it was revolting and gross, but her giddy reaction seemed to counter what she was saying. She just activated internal contradiction mode. Just then, Maya offered a suggestion. They would first test whether Gray was truly fit to be her personal servant. They would start by assessing his tea brewing skills. A personal servant should at least be capable of that much. Maya made it seem simple, but Gray grew up in a life where water was a luxury. He would just have to mimic the way he had seen the maids do it from time to time. And so Gray tried his best to copy the process from memory. He poured some tea for Maya, and she carefully assessed his performance. Gray was anxious as he asked for her thoughts. Maya explained in detail, saying that the water wasn't hot enough. She told him not to be so stingy with the tea leaves, and to set the cup down silently. If he was making the surface ripple, his service was already below second rate. His posture was also lacking, which was important, because a servant was seen as a reflection of their master's dignity. He must therefore hide his lack of confidence. At this level, it was far too soon to entrust him with the role of personal servant. Meanwhile, Alicia noticed that Maya was just nitpicking to get in the way of her flirting. Alicia realized what she was thinking and quickly called herself out. She changed her reasoning, and she now believed Maya was against her perfectly legitimate master-servant relationship. She quickly called out to Maya, reminding her that they were supposed to be training Gray precisely because he was inexperienced. This made Gray nervous, and he could only mutter her name. Just then Maya said that she had never expected perfection from the start. She then moved on to the next test, which surprised Alicia. Maya then replied that she never said there would only be one. Alicia gritted her teeth in anger, knowing that she couldn't do anything about it. Maya told Gray that if he was going to be the young lady's servant, then he should naturally be able to assist her with everything, from her daily preparations to changing her clothes. Gray stuttered, especially at the last thing Maya mentioned. His mind wandered, leading him to a provocative image of Alicia asking him if he wouldn't dress her up. He thought serve her came with a side of fan service. Maya asked if he was thinking about something improper, and he anxiously defended himself. They already had maids who specialized in changing her clothes, so for now Maya wanted to see how well he could brush the young lady's hair as part of her morning routine. Gray anxiously stood behind Alicia, letting her know that he was about to start the test. Alicia told him to go ahead, but the sight of her breasts drove him to look away as fast as he could. Gray out here getting PTSD from titties. As he performed the test, he noticed that Lady Alicia's hair was so smooth like silk. It smelled really nice too, which seemed to put him in a trance. However, he noticed that Maya was staring at him like a hawk, so he immediately snapped back to his senses. He reminded himself that he had to stay focused. Gray asked Alicia for her thoughts on his work, and she remarked that he was quite good at it. It looked like all the times his sister forced him to help her were finally paying off. Just then he told Alicia that there was some resistance near her ear, so he informed her that he would untangle it with his fingers. Alicia froze, realizing that Gray's fingers and breath were tickling her ear. Gray's fingers, I solemnly swear I am up to no good. Gray told her to tell him if anything hurt, but out of nervousness she told him that everything was fine. She kept quiet, twitching as Gray performed his task. Maya assessed Gray's performance, and she admitted that he seemed to have the basics down. Just then she leaned on Gray's back, telling him that he needed to be gentle with the young lady's hair because it was very soft. Maya noticed that Gray was becoming a bit stiff, so she asked him what the matter was. She told him to pay close attention and learn properly. Gray stuttered, but he performed as best as he could. Maya asked if he was seriously getting flustered over something like that and called him a hopeless servant. Just then Alicia intervened, asking Maya what she was doing with Gray. Bro, Gray can't catch a break. Maya then set the jokes aside, saying that she was willing to consider him handling the young lady's daily needs, but at this rate she couldn't entrust her to him. If he even engaged in any behavior that crossed the line, she would have to report it to Alicia's father. This made Alicia raise an eyebrow, and she asked Maya if she thought she would even permit it. Maya explained that she was her father's exclusive servant, and therefore no matter how much Alicia might threaten her, she wouldn't change anything. Alicia growled in fury, as she couldn't do anything about it. Just then Gray told Maya that she could rest assured. After all, a mere commoner like him would never dare lay a hand on a high-class noble such as Lady Alicia. Suddenly Alicia pinched Gray, making him grunt in pain. She looked away as if nothing had happened, making Gray wonder what that was for. He then continued speaking, saying that he only wanted Lady Alicia to be happy. He fully understood what kind of person would be worthy of her. Maya sighed, then accepted his answer for now. Just then she asked Gray what he would do if something like yesterday were to happen again. If the young lady, due to her difficult personality, ended up earning the resentment of those around her. She asked him her one final question. Would he once again translate Alicia's words? Her reputation was somewhat softened since that incident, but his own position remained precarious. Things may have worked out last night, but they wouldn't know next time. Even so, she asked Gray if he was prepared to continue acting as her interpreter. For someone as hopelessly bad at expressing herself as the young lady, having someone like Gray as a translator was invaluable. Right now her reputation was so tarnished that people mockingly called her the Lady of Frost. This role could serve as a bridge to mend that gap. However, at the same time it would force him into an incredibly risky position as a servant. A commoner in noble society was as insignificant as a leaf in the wind, easily cast aside. In fact, his actions last night were right on the edge of what was acceptable. Of course, if he wavered now, that only proved he was unfit for the role. Being her translator meant putting himself on the line for her. so she asked Gray if he would dodge this issue with empty words. Gray said he didn't know, which puzzled Maya. He explained that yesterday, he just couldn't stand to see Lady Alicia being misunderstood. But if Maya asked him whether he had the resolve for it or not, he wasn't sure. He didn't want to lose his job, and being labeled as a disgrace to House Oslin would be a problem too. He really did regret saying such provocative words last night. He was still not sure what would have been the right thing to do back then. However, he wanted more people to genuinely love Lady Alicia, so all he could do was work hard to make sure they saw her for who she truly was. Hearing all that, Alicia blushed. Maya remarked that Gray was really a good-natured and honest person. For now, she would trust his words. As the young lady's interpreter, he had to make sure he fulfilled his role to the fullest. He also shouldn't forget that she would be keeping an eye on him at all times. Gray panicked at her threat, so he quickly said yes. After meeting Maya, Alicia caught up with Gray. She clung to his arm, repeating what he said about never laying a hand on her. To Alicia, it seemed like he still lacked awareness, so she reckoned a little lecture was in order. Gray was surprised by the encounter, wondering why she was holding his arm so tightly. Later on, Alicia brought Gray to a secluded part of the garden. There, Gray told Alicia that they were sitting a bit too close to each other. However, she only told him to be quiet and stay still. Gray, on the other hand, struggled to think straight because her breasts were bumping into his arm. He's out here doing mental gymnastics he didn't train for. Alicia asked if he was putting Maya's orders before hers, and he anxiously replied that he didn't mean to. Just then, Alicia smirked, noting how strange Gray was. Then she shared with him that ever since she was a child, she had never been able to express her feelings honestly, and her mother, the only person who ever understood her, was gone. She had been hated by so many people, and she thought she would end up spending the rest of her life completely alone. However, Gray was the only one who saw the real her, not as the Lady of Frost, but as Alicia Osland. She then cupped Gray's cheeks, making him blush. She smiled at him, telling him that she would never let him go. He belonged to her now, so he should put her above everything else. Gray was stunned, but then every harsh experience he had suddenly came flooding back in his memory. Embarrassed, he looked away, asking Alicia if she was sure. All his life, no one had ever made him feel like he was needed. The thought was so painful that it made Gray shed a tear. Just then, Alicia asked why he was crying now. It made her look like she was bullying him. Still, Gray couldn't stop crying, and he apologized for it. Alicia sighed, realizing that he really left her no choice. Then, without warning, she put his head between her chest, patting his head and calling him a good boy. She promised to give him a lot of head pats so he should stop crying. Gray's mouth was pressed against her chest, and he was too stunned to speak. Alicia started to notice the awkwardness, so she asked him to say something. To her surprise, Gray said that he felt 1,000,000 times better now. The next day, Gray gazed at his clock and thought it was about time. He woke Alicia, greeting her with a good morning and asking her to get up. Alicia still slept soundly, unaware of how bare she looked without her clothing. Gray quickly walked away, though he was obviously blushing. Alicia slowly woke up, realizing that it was morning already. She then held her hands out to Gray, telling him to carry her. A love story between a noble and a commoner could never have a happy ending. Anybody knew it was a foolish idea. Gray was stunned by her request, so he asked her to get up on her own. It looked like his ironclad loyalty would be tested every single morning from now on. Gray knocked on Alicia's door, telling her to wake up because it was already morning. She wasn't a morning person, and she whined about not being able to wake up unless he picked her up. Gray told her to wake up on her own, but she was stubborn and refused unless he carried her. Having no choice, Gray carried her in his arms, much to her joy. The sight of her breasts made him nervous, and to make it even worse, she suddenly rubbed her cheeks against his. Bro, trying to carry someone without emotionally collapsing. He called out her name in a panic, causing her to return to her senses. Alicia explained to him that she ended up pulling an all-nighter last night, which was why she was half asleep earlier. She then shifted the topic and asked Gray to help her comb her hair again. Shortly after, it was time for breakfast. Alicia's eyes immediately landed on the flowers at the edge of the table, and she remarked that they were nothing like the lovely roses from yesterday. The new maid May got anxious by her comment. She nervously explained that they were actually delivered to her the other day from the countryside by her parents. Alicia had never seen such flowers before, so she asked May where exactly she was from. May suddenly burst into tears, apologizing to Alicia for her mistake. She acknowledged that countryside flowers would be unworthy of her gaze, and she initiated removing them right away. When you bring a gift, but it comes with an emotional hostage situation. Just then Gray stopped her, telling her not to put the flowers away. May was surprised, so Gray explained to her that Lady Alicia meant to say those flowers are so beautiful, yet this is my first time seeing them. Could they be native to your homeland? Gray explained that this was what the young lady said, no more no less. The maid was shocked, unable to process the revelation. Alicia played it cool and said that she didn't mean to say that much. It was just that as a noble woman, it would be unbecoming not to know the name of a flower. Long story short, Gray insisted that Lady Alicia was simply eager to learn the name of that flower. This embarrassed Alicia, so she angrily called out Gray. As the two bickered, May's eyes sparkled with joy. She then grabbed the flowers and held them close to Alicia, eagerly explaining their origins. Gray smiled, knowing that he saved Alicia once again. As he left the dining hall, May chased after him, thanking him for his help earlier. Gray told her not to mention it, as it was nothing worth thanking him for. May argued that it wasn't that simple because it actually made her happy. She moved to the capital by herself and couldn't fit in with those around her, so she kept thinking about going back to the countryside. However, Gray was so kind to her that day, just like her big brother back home. Still, Gray felt like she was giving him too much credit. Just then May asked if it was all right with him that she would like him to keep her company from time to time so they could talk. Gray guessed that she really missed her family now that she left the countryside, so naturally he agreed to her request. He also hoped that they could get along. Just then May told him that she was younger than him and was his junior, so she insisted that he use her name without honorifics. Gray was surprised, yet he agreed to it. Alicia, on the other hand, suspiciously wondered why this girl would say something like that so carelessly. Worried, Gray told May that they must still remember they were colleagues, so there were boundaries to respect. Also, it wouldn't set a good example for others. May was a bit dismayed, so she asked Gray to call her May when they're alone. After that, she bid Gray goodbye and went on with her duties. Alicia immediately played passive-aggressive, pointing out how close Gray and May were. She even asked him what kind of relationship they had. Alicia's glare could have been patented as a weapon. After breakfast, Lady Alicia had some free time. Lately, she often spent it reading in the library. During that same time, Gray also got the chance to read and study himself, making it a valuable part of his day. Not long after, he informed Lady Alicia that it was almost time for lunch. Alicia was surprised that it was already that late, and she thanked Gray for telling her. Gray said she was welcome, but then he asked what type of book she was reading. Alicia smiled menacingly and said that it was a secret, but she promised she would lend it to him another time. Unbeknownst to Gray, the story was about a dense servant and a noble duke's daughter, who was Alicia, of course, who fell in love and spent sweet days together. Gray's life got spoilers, and he didn't even subscribe. During lunchtime, Gray ate separately from Alicia at the servants' cafeteria. There, Mori expressed how he couldn't believe that the young lady had taken such a liking to Gray. However, it looked like the number of servants who spoke ill of her had decreased, and it was all thanks to him. Gray simply said that it was because Lady Alicia was actually a sweet person. Mori was a bit jealous, and at first he was captivated by Alicia's beauty too. However, he was all about May, whose innocent smile was the best. Gray was unamused, and he told Mori that he shouldn't go for a girl who hadn't come of age yet. May happened to hear everything and was surprised. Just then she approached Gray, asking him if he was about to have lunch. Gray called her with honorifics again, which slightly annoyed May. She told him to simply call her by her name, or she would get very upset. Gray laughed and agreed to call her May, much to her joy. It made her very happy, and she even thanked Gray. Just then she told him that she had to get back to work now. She did want to talk to him once she was done. As she waved goodbye, Gray worriedly told her that someone might get the wrong idea. When they were finally alone, Mori muttered Gray's name in an annoyed tone. But Gray only kept silent. Mori burst in annoyance, noting that Gray surely didn't waste his time. Furious, he mentioned the words girl and friend in disbelief. Mori's crush plotline just got nerfed by common sense. Gray explained that he got it all wrong. He and this girl were just friends. Still, this didn't stop Mori from cursing, and he proclaimed that he would move on to a new love. The era of motherliness had finally come, and it was time for the charm of a mature woman. Gray wondered what he was talking about, and he guessed that Mori was thinking about Maya. Mori admitted that she was strict and had a tough personality, but he couldn't help but imagine if that cool beauty turned lovey-dovey just for him. That was right up his alley, and he even asked Gray if he felt him. Gray was starting to get scared, so he told Mori to stop it. However, this didn't stop Mori from yapping away. He wished he could make Maya's room sparkle, just so she would look at him with her cold eyes, and praise him by saying how even a man like you can be useful once in a while. Mori couldn't even begin to imagine. Then to his surprise, Maya walked into the room, asking if he really wanted her to praise him that badly. He's a pro at being caught. Mori froze, and he slowly looked at her. Just then she doubled his cleaning duties for the next month, and of course her room would be off limits. Mori felt his soul leave his body, and he simply said yes. After that, Maya approached Gray, noticing that his meal portion seemed rather small. Gray apologized, then explained that it was just that the food was so delicious that he didn't dare to eat too much. Maya told him that the servants' meals were provided free of charge, therefore he should make sure to eat the proper amount. It would be problematic if he couldn't muster any strength when it mattered. Just then she gave Gray a slice of cake, making him ask what it was. Maya told him that if he thought she was nothing but a strict woman with a tough personality, he was sorely mistaken. She leaned closer to his face, letting him know that she always made sure to properly reward her hard-working subordinates. Gray's eyes widened in shock upon hearing that. Then in a split second Maya had left. Mori erupted in tears, banging his fists, as he asked why it was always Gray. He even went and got his hands on his oasis. He demanded that Gray give him the cake, but Gray refused, saying it was his. Mori's watching like someone just stole his dessert. Later that day, Alicia's lessons had finally concluded. She was told to keep practicing until next time. At twilight, after she endured her grueling lessons, Lady Alicia revealed a side of herself she didn't usually show. Gray commended her for the job well done at keeping up with her lessons. Alicia, who was sulking in her bed, asked him to praise her. Gray did as he was told, and he complimented her for being an incredibly diligent worker. When she asked for more, he told her that beautiful and accomplished in her studies, as she was, the words beauty and brains were clearly made for her. Alicia asked if it was really true, and Gray confirmed it. He for one had never met a woman more wonderful than her. Alicia wondered if that was so because she was sure there were plenty of other beautiful and talented noble women out there. Gray patiently told her there weren't, but Alicia still argued. She then brought up a hypothetical scenario wherein a girl would appear right in front of Gray, and she was sure he would choose her over a troubled woman like her. Someone like her was nothing but a nuisance anyway. Gray was silent for a moment, then he asked her in return. Alicia muttered his name, curious about what he was going to say next. Gray laid out a scenario wherein a servant more attractive and capable than him had appeared. Then he asked Alicia if she would dismiss him for her new personal attendant. Alicia irritatingly told him not to joke about it because he was her one and only soulmate. She was caught off guard by what she said, but to her surprise, Gray didn't react. He kneeled before her and held her hand, telling her that she already knew his answer to her question. There was no one more special to him than her. No matter what anyone may say, she would always be his number one. Flustered, Alicia quickly pulled her hand away, causing Gray to ask if she was all right. Still stunned by his gesture, Alicia did nothing but stutter. Then out of nowhere, Gray carried her in his arms and headed to her bed. She anxiously told him to stop because it was clearly too soon for that, whatever the circumstances may be. As if she doesn't secretly want it. Gray told her that there was nothing wrong with starting a bit early. When one was exhausted, it felt good to just slip in. Alicia stuttered as she repeated what he said. Then she mentioned that there was no way for it to feel good because the first time was said to hurt. Puzzled, Gray asked if it was like getting a headache from oversleeping. However, he told her not to worry because he promised to take full responsibility for that. After all, it was his task to wake her up properly. Alicia asked if he was serious about this, taking a noble lady for himself in spite of his status as a commoner. Without a doubt, Gray replied that he was always serious when it came to her. When he finally laid her down on the bed, she told him to be gentle with her. She wanted them to stay close and connected to each other for a while. Just then, Gray proclaimed that he would now guide her into a dazzling world of dreams. Alicia closed her eyes, agreeing for him to make it a wonderful dreamlike moment. Suddenly, Gray started counting sheep out loud, which made Alicia chuckle because he came up with an unusual play. Confused, Gray asked what she meant by that. It was then that they both realized that they were on different pages. All that edging for nothing. Alicia then grinned, noticing that a punishment was in order for this no-good servant of hers. She grabbed Gray and forced him into the bed, making him tense. He thought it wasn't a good idea, and he started to worry that Maya would see them like that. Alicia didn't feel sorry for him, as she felt like this kind of thrill was perfect punishment for him. Suddenly her gaze turned seductive, asking him if he hated it. Gray was stunned by her question, so he agreed to it just this once. Then just when he thought the worst was over, Alicia tried to plead her way into doing the deed. As expected, Gray was stunned by it. Bath time after dinner was the most crucial moment. Alicia wanted to take a bath together, but Gray made it clear that they couldn't. Alicia pouted, but Gray told her that she could do all that, and it still wouldn't change his mind. Just then Alicia told him that she had enough of his defiance, and she asked if he meant to disobey her. Although Gray stuttered, he told her that threatening him wouldn't get her anywhere. Annoyed, she kicked him, but he called her out for it, because it was against the rules. Alicia started to cry, clarifying that all she wanted was for him to wash her hair. She was worried about getting soap into her eyes and becoming blind as a result. Still, Gray told her that no matter how many fake tears she shed, he wouldn't give in. Refusing to give up, Alicia suggested covering his eyes. All he had to do was wear a blindfold. As long as he couldn't see her body, he could go with her. At this point, Alicia is making Gray earn every single second of oxygen. However, Gray wasn't excited by her idea in mind. Just then Alicia started playing a scenario in her mind wherein she was naked in the bathroom with Gray. In her imagination, he nervously asked how she was feeling, and she playfully told him to be careful with where he was touching her. Gray was alarmed by what she was saying, but she was too immersed in her thoughts to be bothered. Still, she asked Gray to do it because she wanted him to shampoo her hair. She wanted them to go in together, and she wanted to be with him more. Rattled by her close proximity, Gray pulled away and said he couldn't. This was the one order he couldn't obey. Alicia giggled and said it was a shame, but judging by his reaction, it seemed he was finally starting to see her as a woman. Gray asked her to stop teasing him like that, but she decided to tell him that she wouldn't mind baring all of herself to him. As Gray stood there speechless, she finally left and said she'd see him later. When he was finally alone, Gray admitted that he was losing his edge. He got all flustered over a lady Alicia like that, so he needed to cool his head. Suddenly Alicia appeared and remarked that he was impressive. Gray was shocked, thinking that she would still be in the bath. Annoyed, she told him she got out ages ago, and he didn't even greet her. Just then she asked what he was doing. Gray explained that it was something like a daily routine of his from when he was aiming to enroll in the Night Academy. Alicia seemed curious, so Gray shared his story with her. She soon understood how he wound up working in her mansion. Gray claimed that he was glad things turned out the way they did, because if he had entered the Night Academy, he wouldn't have been able to meet Alicia, and thanks to that he could now devote himself to protecting her. Alicia gushed at his words, and she baby-talked as she professed how much she loved him. She thought that her darling Gray was such a hunk. However, she quickly noticed that she broke out of character, so she snapped back to her senses. Sis clocked herself. She then told Gray that regardless of his past, he should just do his best as her personal attendant from now on. She then cupped his face, suggesting that one day he could do his best as something more than that. However, Gray quickly pulled away from her touch, leaving her surprised. He anxiously said that he couldn't possibly let her touch his sweaty body. Embarrassed, Alicia retorted that he should get his mind out of the gutter because she wasn't even trying to touch him. She giggled, explaining that she wasn't thinking about licking his manly pheromones or anything like that. Just then she told him to make sure not to catch a cold. Then she said goodnight. Gray stayed behind, returning the favor to her. He guessed it was really insensitive of him to move away from her like that. He and Lady Alicia were of different social statuses. She was a noblewoman, whereas he was merely a common-born servant. He looked up at her window, hoping she would accept his apology. Elsewhere, Limrys angrily muttered Alicia's name, claiming that she would never forgive her. One morning, a carriage arrived at the mansion, alarming May. She ran to Gray in a hurry, informing him that they had a problem and that he should come see. Gray asked what was wrong and why she was panicking so much. According to May, they had a guest, and it was someone who wanted to see Lady Alicia. Gray was surprised to hear this, so he asked what the guest's name was. To his shock, it was none other than Lady Limrys Carnera. That name hit harder than a plot twist. Just then Limrys approached them, asking how long they were going to make her wait. However, when Alicia heard of Limrys' arrival, she only acted chill and told Gray to get her out of the estate. She didn't want to see her again, and she promptly walked away. Limrys was caught in disbelief, and she told Alicia to stop. She wondered if this was any way to treat a friend who went to the trouble of visiting her. However, Alicia frowned at the thought of them being friends, and she asked who was a friend to whom in their situation. Limrys was dumbfounded, but she quickly mentioned that they were classmates from the same academy. Alicia asked what her point was, a question that made Limrys tremble for an answer. This is not a reunion, it's a reckoning. Gray remarked that Limrys looked genuinely troubled, so perhaps they could afford to hear her out a little at least. She may have gotten herself caught up in a precarious situation. Alicia agreed, noting that Limrys must be in quite the predicament. After all, her household was on the brink of ruin. Limrys looked down in embarrassment while Gray was seemingly puzzled by the revelation. Alicia recalled how Limrys, being a fool, had treated Farah poorly. Farah was the Marquise's daughter, and Limrys treated her like her own personal stepping stone despite merely being the daughter of a viscount. That sort of conduct was absolutely unacceptable in noble society. Limrys tried to downplay her mistake, especially since she had the heiress of the esteemed Astuar family clinging to her like a puppy. She asked Alicia if she could really blame her for allowing herself to enjoy the feeling a little bit. Alicia sighed, telling her that this was what she got for letting it go to her head. Limrys anxiously told her not to say it like she had nothing to do with it. She was in that mess because they exposed everything to Farah, and she wanted them to take responsibility for that. Desperate, Limrys clung to Alicia, apologizing in tears. She grabbed Alicia like a life raft. She was sorry for everything she said about her. Alicia yielded, then she told Limrys to tell her what she wanted, and she'd hear her out. Just then, Limrys revealed that she wanted Alicia to mediate between her and Farah. Alicia bluntly told her where the exit was, much to Limrys' panic. Alicia remarked that Limrys had a lot of nerve to ask her for help. Surely she hadn't forgotten the way she had been treating her all this time. Limrys stuttered, unable to deny everything she had done. Just then, Gray attempted to calm Alicia. He reminded her that Limrys was still her schoolmate. He also suggested taking this chance to do her this one favor and put her in her debt. Limrys referred to Gray as a mere servant, but she commended him for being clever. Suddenly, she fawned over Gray, saying that she looked kind of shabby, but looking closely, he was actually quite sweet-looking and handsome. Alicia, who was observing her, was stunned by her boldness. She asked what Limrys was doing, flirting with Gray like that. Seeing Alicia's threatening aura, Limrys shrieked in horror. Gray quickly intervened, telling Alicia not to toy with Lady Limrys so much. Gray caught in the crossfire of petty nobility. Alicia huffed in irritation. Then she finally yielded to Limrys' request. She supposed she could make an exception and help her mediate the situation between Limrys and Farah. Limrys hesitatingly asked if she really would, and Alicia confirmed it, but under one condition. She wanted Limrys to become her lackey. Limrys was appalled, and she remarked that she would never agree to it. Alicia teasingly asked if she was sure. Considering that nasty personality of hers, she would never have any other friends to rely on. Having no choice, Limrys kneeled on the floor, barking like a dog. Alicia called her a good girl, though she wasn't normally a dog person. However, she treated her obedient pets with care. As Limrys kept on barking, she admitted that it was mortifying. However, she didn't know why she was shivering with excitement. Meanwhile, Gray could only stand there sympathizing with Limrys. Gray witnessing crimes against dignity. Alicia told him not to get the wrong idea because she didn't care what would happen to the pathetic mutt. She was just concerned about Farah being hurt after all that had happened. Gray was stunned realizing that noble ladies sure were a quirky bunch. Later in town, Alicia met up with Farah. Farah greeted her in Gray, and Alicia remarked that it had been a long time since they saw each other at the ball. Farah never imagined that she would receive an invitation from Alicia, and it was such a lovely letter too. She was truly moved. Alicia told her she was exaggerating, and she claimed she didn't do much. Unbeknownst to Farah, 90% of that letter was written by Gray. After that, Alicia suggested that they get started on working a little magic on Farah. Alicia switching from menace to mentor. Farah was a bit shy, but she asked to be in her care. As soon as they entered the store, everyone bowed down to Alicia. They welcomed and informed her that all of their staff members had been eagerly awaiting her visit. Farah's eyes sparkled with delight because it was her first time in such a stylish store. She immediately fawned over the dresses, which she found absolutely stunning. Alicia thought it was only natural because she had been going there patiently for quite some time, training the place herself. Farah asked if this meant she had the place suited to her taste, but Alicia said it wasn't quite the case. The shop used to chase after every passing trend, constantly changing its designs just to keep up with them. The craftsmanship was excellent, but there was no reason for the store to be the one in particular. To Alicia, preserving tradition and staying at the forefront of the trends were both important. However, that alone wasn't enough. So she asked them what kind of products they wanted the store to sell. She thought that customers shouldn't just be swept along by brand names, they needed to choose with their own eyes. For those customers, a store should struggle and create the best products it possibly can. If a store couldn't do that, then there was no reason to visit it. And if Farah were a proper noble lady, then she ought to develop an eye for beauty too. Moved by her monologue, Farah claimed that she would. Just then Alicia told Farah that if there was something that she liked, she would buy it for her as a gift. She thought it would be a hassle to split the bill. Farah worriedly said that she couldn't have her pay for her because it wouldn't be right. Suddenly Gray chimed in, acknowledging that with how Lady Alicia phrased it, it was no wonder she would misunderstand. Seeing how confused Farah was, Gray explained that Lady Alicia meant to say, "As a token of our friendship, I'd like to offer you a dress. If it makes you happy, then it's a small price to pay." Farah was touched, and she finally understood how Alicia really felt. Gray translating rich girl generosity into human language. Alicia was embarrassed, so she said it was enough talk. Once she picked a dress, they were to move on. After shopping for a dress, they headed to Marilee's makeup and hair salon. There an elderly woman greeted them. Alicia told the woman everything she wanted for Farah, and in a snap the woman worked her magic. She whipped out her brushes, making Farah anxious. Not long after Farah's makeup and hair were finished, and she was surprised to see her new look. She was at a loss for words and could only mutter Alicia's name. Just then Alicia told her that now would be a good time for a meal. She had already made a reservation at her favorite restaurant. When they arrived at the establishment, people immediately exchanged whispers about the arrival of the Lady of Frost. Just then one of the patrons wondered who the woman next to her was. The patron's wife was furious, wondering how he dared to stare at another woman when she was right there. That man stared for 1 second and chose death. Meanwhile, the waiter thanked Alicia for her patience. He would now show her to her usual special table. In an instant, Alicia and Farah were directed to a long table just for the two of them. The only flaw in the restaurant was its clientele. Just then Farah thanked Alicia for inviting her, and she emphasized how happy she was about it. Suddenly Alicia revealed that she was not one to beat around the bush, so she would now be blunt. She had a reason for inviting her out that day. It was about Limris. Farah's smile logged out. She went on to say that Limris's family was in serious trouble at the moment, and at this rate her household would fall into ruin. And given Limris's ignorance of the real world, no one knew what would happen to her. Farah felt bad, but she apologized to Alicia because she didn't want to fall for Limris's lies again. She was born from an affair between her father and his mistress, and when she was at home her father and her siblings acted like she didn't exist. She was constantly ignored even in high society, and Limris was the one who treated her like a friend. This was precisely why she couldn't forgive her. Then to Farah's surprise, Alicia simply respected her wishes. If that was what she had decided, then they should leave it like that. Just then the waiter arrived with their appetizers. Alicia was relieved by its perfect timing while Farah was still buffering from their previous conversation. Farah asked why, so Alicia simply explained that it was not like she owed Limris anything. She was just a side note is all. That day was only about working her magic on Farah. Farah tried to argue, but then she inevitably fell silent. Alicia guessed that Farah still didn't get it, which confused the girl. Alicia then revealed that she didn't invite her merely to show her her favorite store. She asked Farah what she had witnessed that day and what she had learned. What mattered more was her own will, what she wanted to do and who she wanted to be. She urged Farah to think about it, make her own choices, and act on them with confidence. She could earn trust with her own strength. This stunned Farah, but Alicia kept on talking. She recalled what Farah had mentioned, that her family had ignored her. However, she asked if she had ever tried to reach out to them herself. She also guessed that it was Farah's choice to rely on Limris for everything and become dependent on her. Farah stuttered, asking what she should do. Then in a blunt tone Alicia asked if she was going to depend on her next. Farah tried her best not to cry. Then she apologized for making her teach her everything. Alicia was surprised, and she could only mutter Farah's name. Just then Farah revealed that the one she was most furious about was her father. He said it was an affront to the Astor family's honor, and she was afraid of facing him like that. She almost forsook her dearest friend because of that, and she couldn't bring herself to ask her father to forgive Limris. She admitted she still had mixed feelings about her even now, but she didn't believe every moment they spent together was an act. That was why she still thought of her as her friend. She wouldn't run away anymore. Not from her father and not from herself. This bold statement made Alicia smile. Just then Farah apologized to Alicia and asked if they could postpone their meal for another time. Alicia said it was okay, and she told Farah that if she ever needed her help then she shouldn't hesitate to call on her. Farah happily said that she would, and she told Alicia that if she ever found herself in trouble, she would be the one to come running. Not long after Farah went on her way, leaving Alicia and Gray at the restaurant. Gray noticed that Lady Farah had truly gotten stronger, prompting him to ask if it was Alicia's real aim. Alicia smirked, noting that it was rare for him to catch on so late. Just then she winked at Gray, telling him that there was another purpose to her perfect plan. Gray was curious, so Alicia explained that since Farah left without eating, she now had an extra portion of the course meal. Gray got excited as he now had a guess at what this meant. Alicia shared that no one would see them there even if the master and servant were to dine at the same time. Gray chuckled, admitting that he really was no match for her. Alicia asked if he had only realized that when she already held everything in the palm of her hand. With that, Alicia and Gray dined together. Later that night, Alicia spoke with her father. She asked what manner of joke this was, but her father remained stoic, bluntly saying that he had arranged a fiancé for her. This time Alicia would become a bride. End scene with emotional whiplash. Alicia asked Gray how long he had been working at the mansion, and he replied that it had been 3 months or so. If that was the case, she wondered how much longer it would take for him to understand that she wanted the dish out of her sight. The said dish was none other than seasonal vegetables stuffed with meat. Gray asked if she hated vegetables that much, but Alicia told him he was wrong. This wasn't as childish an issue as not liking vegetables. It was simply a matter of taste, and he shouldn't get it twisted. This dish offended her on a spiritual level. Gray sighed, realizing he had no choice. Just then he called May, and he asked her to come for a bit. May asked what the matter was, and Gray explained that Lady Alicia couldn't bring herself to eat the dish. May was confused since stuffed peppers were tasty. Gray agreed, noting that meat-stuffed dishes were hard to cut with a knife because of how easily they fell apart. He was planning to cut it up himself and help her eat it, but he would let May have it instead as practice. May was excited to hear that while Alicia was fuming in the background. The jealousy update installed instantly. Alicia, who was a second away from combusting, asked what Gray meant by helping her eat it. He replied that it would be something like her saying "ah" while he fed her. Alicia's mind spiraled, picturing a scenario where Gray asked May to open her mouth more so that he could feed her well. Worried, she yielded and screamed that she would eat it. She then warned Gray not to dare dote on any other woman other than her. He belonged to her, so he had to spoil her and her alone. She promised she would be a good girl, so he had better pamper her lots. Suddenly, Alicia noticed that the staff around her were looking, so she asked what they were doing that for. She told them to clear out, and they immediately ran for their lives. Shortly after, Alicia opened her mouth and waited for Gray to feed her. Gray asked if she liked the food, but she thought one bite wasn't enough to tell. That said, she asked if he would give her a whole lot more. Gray was surprised, especially when he noticed how close she was to his face. However, just when the momentum was building, somebody knocked on the door. Alicia angrily asked if the person minded, as she didn't want anyone to come in until she was done eating. She and Gray were in the middle of their lovey-dovey time. Just then the person behind the door welcomed himself inside. He asked if that was, so then he asked Alicia to pardon him. He had never expected a part of his own estate to be off limits even to him. The man was none other than the head of the Duchy of Osland, Dylan Osland. Alicia was surprised to see her father, so she immediately fixed her act. She asked him to forgive her rudeness, and she explained that she mistook him for one of her servants. Just then Dylan looked over at Gray, asking if the young man was a servant as well. Alicia nervously remarked that he was her personal servant. Dylan argued that personal or not, he was still just a servant. Not to mention, she seemed awfully friendly with him. This scene went from rom-com to courtroom. Alicia fired back, asking if there was anything wrong with a noblewoman and her servant being friendly with each other. Dylan sneered, recalling how Alicia said lovey-dovey time earlier. If there was nothing wrong with it, then they should just carry on right there in front of him. Alicia was stunned into silence while Gray stood there buffering. Just then Dylan sat himself down, mentioning that he had received quite a few reports about the servant from Maya. He asked if his name was Gray, and Gray confirmed it, adding that his last name was Wrecker. He also told Dylan that it was an honor to meet him. Just then Dylan pointed out that Alicia had just turned 17, and yet she had appointed a 16-year-old boy as her personal servant. He asked if she cared to explain what was going through her mind. Alicia spoke with respect, but she believed that age and gender were irrelevant when it came to people of talent. With that, Dylan asked if she could swear to him that there was absolutely no personal bias behind his promotion. When Alicia wasn't able to respond, Dylan had his answer. He came to check on her after so long, and this was what he found. It seemed that leaving her in Maya's care alone was a mistake after all. Alicia fell silent, and she started to shed tears. Suddenly, she slammed her hands on the table, yelling that he had enough of it. Dylan had left her alone in the villa for so long, and he had no idea what she had been going through until that time. Unresolved childhood detected. She was about to say that Gray was her very first, but Dylan cut her off, urging her to specify what she was going to say. He then admitted that he had been neglecting her all this time, and he hadn't seen how she had been living her life. That was precisely why he was there that day. Alicia had been shunned by high society and suspended from the academy, and considering the state, he found the mansion and she left him with no other option. Dylan then revealed that he had arranged a new fiancée for Alicia. This time she would become a bride. Alicia was stunned, and then she asked what manner of joke this was. Dylan simply said that he discussed it with him the other day, and they had made it official. Suddenly, Alicia remarked that making such a decision, without even asking her, was far too high-handed. She should at least have the right to choose for herself. Dylan wondered what she was even saying at this point. He always arranged all her previous engagements since she said she wasn't interested in marriage. He quoted her specific words, "I won't let any man lay a finger on me, so feel free to choose any fiancé you like in my stead." Alicia gritted her teeth in fury, but then a thought calmed her down. She was sure the next one would run away with his tail between his legs anyway, just like all the others did. Meanwhile, Gray realized that Lady Alicia had already gone through dozens of broken engagements. Not a single one of her fiancés had been able to tolerate her sharp tongue and attitude. Suddenly, Dylan said that he wouldn't let that happen this time. Alicia smirked, asking her father what made him so sure of that. Though she hated to admit it, she had a pretty harsh personality. To her surprise, Dylan agreed to that, noting that it hadn't changed until now. However, her next fiancé was different. That one knew everything about her disposition and still decided to propose to her in spite of it. Hearing this revelation stunned both Alicia and Gray. The plot thickened aggressively.